Hi, welcome to 9/11 was an inside job and other state crimes against democracy. Now, we've reported about the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which was a crime, it was a state crime against democracy if you ever saw one. And in, what was it, May, uh, Judge Catherine Forrest, brave soul, gave it a preliminary injunction against Section 1021, which was the indefinite detention part of it. Well, okay, that was great. And then along comes in August, we get the uh, uh, they change it from preliminary to permanent. So it had a permanent injunction against it. Oh, okay. Then the Bush administration tried to protest against that, and they were struck down. And I thought, all right, we're going to all celebrate the NDAA indefinite detention provision was struck down. But the weasels in the Bush administration, the weasels lying deliberately for Obama, who claims that he's not interested in indefinite detention, and yet they're fighting tooth and nail for it, have got another injunction against the permanent injunction against. In other words, it's an injunction against the injunction. They put a temporary stay. They say it's temporary until they review the situation. But the Obama administration has claimed we need to be able to lock up Americans without cause. We need to be able to lock them up and throw away the key. We have to do that for national security. Whoops, I'm banging my microphone with waving my hands. Uh, it's like I've said, if you have to have secrets, you're trying to hide something illegal. There's no reason to. Well, anyway, let me show you what Russia Today has to say. Now, Russia Today is one of the best sources for news nowadays. They don't pull their punches, and especially the show on Russia Today called Breaking the Set. If you have not seen that, get on your computer and look up Russia Today Breaking the Set and watch the series. That woman that does that, I'm not worried about her name right now. I forgot it, but she is so wonderful. Let me tell you, she is doing the type of journalism that you dream about. She exposes the filth. She puts forward the outrage that every one of us should be feeling. And anyway, let's play the clip. Go ahead and bring it in behind me or bring it out.
Well, a setback for critics of the indefinite detention law, better known as the NDAA. A federal appeals court has halted the ruling that blocked the provision that allows the government to indefinitely detain U.S. citizens. As we reported last week, a federal judge ruled that the government cannot use the law to hold people in military prisons indefinitely. But it looks like this is being put on hold by the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. This after the Obama administration filed an emergency petition to overturn District Judge Catherine Forrest's ruling. If you can recall, a group of journalists and activists sued the government, arguing the NDAA is unconstitutional and fear they could be indefinitely detained under it. For more, Carl Mayer, attorney for the Mayer Law Group, who is representing the plaintiffs in this case, joins me now. Carl, nice to see you. So first off,
thanks, Ms. Wall. Thanks for having me back.
First off, want to get your reaction to the move made by the Court of Appeals yesterday.
Sure. Well, actually, it's more of a minor blip in a minor bump in the road rather than a major development. What happened was the court issued an administrative stay, which just means that they're protecting the status quo ante prior to a full hearing on whether there should be a stay pending an appeal. So, and that will occur next week sometime. And the full merits of this case will be decided probably in the next couple months after both sides have an opportunity to brief the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the last stop before the U.S. Supreme Court. So bottom line is there wasn't a real ruling on the merits. So it's not a huge development. We obviously would have preferred if the court didn't put a stay on Judge Forrest's ruling, and we're going to be right back in court next week after asking that they lift the stay and that there be no stay during the course of the appeal. So the fight goes on. I find it interesting that the Obama administration is fighting all out. They worked into Friday night and over the weekend to file these emergency papers to appeal this decision of Judge Forrest. So right now, the Obama administration is all in their nonstop effort to retain the power to send U.S. citizens to military prisons.
And why do you think it is that the Obama administration is so adamant about keeping this controversial provision in place?
I really can't speak to the motivation. All I can say is that on civil liberties issues, this president has been even more aggressive in eroding American civil liberties than George W. Bush. And it's really an unfortunate turn in our democracy. This has been occurring since 9/11, but the Obama administration has gone full in for drones. They've gone full in for targeted assassinations, including of American citizens. They've gone full in for warrantless wiretapping. And now they've gone full in for the right to detain American citizens in military prisons, thus circumventing our democracy and our judicial system. Why the president is doing this, when he ought to know better as a constitutional law professor, I can't speculate. The only reason that comes to mind is it's pure politics, and he wants to be seen as tough on terror. And because of that, he's willing to throw American civil liberties out the window. But I think that's unprincipled, and I don't think the voters are interested in that stance, because they know that the government has so many tools available to fight terrorists. This is not a conventional war between nation states. Therefore, it doesn't require extraordinary measures. And dating back to the Civil War, it's just been a bedrock principle of our country that the military doesn't patrol our streets. The military can't put U.S. citizens in one of their detention centers without a due process of law. I don't know why he's doing it. I'm calling this litigation the send Harold and Kumar back to Guantanamo Bay litigation, because that's what the White House is fighting to do. It was a satirical film, but the characters in that film were U.S. citizens, and it was very satiric. But it's no less ironic to have this legislation that allows, and under the terms of the legislation, as Judge Forrest pointed out, that would allow this government to send journalists and activists into a military detention system. It's just incredible to me. And that's why I think we're going to prevail in front of the Second Circuit, and I think we're going to prevail in front of the Supreme Court if it goes there.
Okay, it's an interesting comparison that you make to that movie, Harold and Kumar. What did they go to White Castle or something? That's an interesting comparison that you make. I do want to ask, just to clarify exactly what is going on, if we can kind of go through a timeline. The judge had issued this temporary injunction, and then last week a huge victory for you and your plaintiffs, where the judge made that temporary injunction permanent. Now, what exactly is the status of this controversial part of the law, the part that allows for the indefinite detention of U.S. citizens?
Great. Kudos to you, Ms. Wall, for asking the question, because in fact, all the media outlets that have covered this issue today have gotten this wrong. So you are getting this correct by asking the precise question. All the media outlets have incorrectly reported that the Second Circuit is going to hear the merits of this case next week on September 28th. That's not correct. What the Second Circuit will consider next week is simply whether to actually keep a stay in place during the course of the appeal before the Second Circuit, where we will fully brief and argue the issues. Okay? Until yesterday, a Judge Forrest injunction had been in place. And that injunction, and that had been in place since May 16th. And that injunction meant that the NDAA provisions were null and void, and that the United States government could not place U.S. citizens, journalists, activists, etc., in a military detention situation. So it had been a huge victory and a hard-fought victory that we won in May. We kept it in place. Judge Forrest extended the victory by making the injunction permanent on the 12th. And now Judge Forrest's permanent injunction is going to be ruled on by the Second Circuit and maybe even the Supreme Court of the United States. So it'll probably take another couple months for this to play out within the Second Circuit. And then who knows, this might get a pretty expedited hearing before the Supreme Court. maybe by next spring. But what we're going to be asking the Second Circuit to do starting next week is take that stay off and let judge forced injunction stand, meaning the NDAA cannot be used to detain American citizens. As US, and anywhere in the world, US citizens have constitutional rights, and it's this administration that's trying to undermine them.
Very interesting. And Carl, thank you so much for keeping us updated on this very important case that is changing by the days and by the weeks. That was Carl Mayer, attorney with the Mayer Law Group.
Thank you, Ms. Wall.
Okay, we're back again, and I have with me today Marcella Peña, and she's from the Portland AE 9/11 Truth Group. And we're going to talk about news with the 9/11 group and like, for instance, how well Richard Gage's movie's been doing all around. And we've got the phone call number up there, so feel free to call in. And now we're opening up for the first time in a long time, where you got 47 minutes left, or no, what is it? Yeah, 47 minutes left on the clock. And so we have a lot of time for people to call in. So how have things been going with the 9/11 group here in Portland?
Well, we had a really fantastic anniversary week in the month of September. We were in 7 cities, including Portland, but including Gresham, Hood River, even S.C.A.D.s, Tigard, Hillsborough, Beaverton, but it was a total of 7 cities within a matter of about 10 days during the anniversary week, from the 10th of September to the 18th, and they were really very well attended. We were only able to put in 2 ads, and and then we got really good attendance. And our upcoming free library presentations of the DVD, which is what he was referring to, which is 9/11 explosive evidence experts speak out, and that's actually what we were showing in all these cities during anniversary week. And our next lineup of free library presentations of these DVDs is going to be October and November. In October we have 4 libraries scheduled to show it. On October 9th, Tuesday, October 9th, we're going to be showing in the Gresham Library. And please refer to the Portland AE 9/11.
Yeah, you can see it behind us here.
Yeah, the website. To see these dates again. But so on October 9th, Tuesday, October 9th, at the Gresham Library. Tuesday, October 23rd, at the Belmont Library. At Tuesday, October 30th, at the Selwood Moreland Library, and Sunday, November 11th, at the Portland Central Library. And so,
you can get that schedule right on the website,
yes, you can.
portlandae911truth.org.
Yes.
And by the way, I posted that on my website on YouTube also, and I sent Marcella a screenshot of my computer when I was checking the statistics on it once, and it just so happened that the number of views that it had gotten were 911. Pretty good, you know. So
very nice coincidence.
I'll show it next week. Right now, we don't have that set up to do that right now. But remember, here's your opportunity to call in and ask the 9/11 experts all the questions you've been dying to ask.
I was in architecture school when 9/11 happened, and I'm not a licensed architect yet. I'm still on the road to being a licensed architect, but not quite there yet. But I do have my own practice. I do design and photography. So just so you can know that factually. Oh
yeah, well, as far as my qualifications, I could only testify a little bit about the cell phone stuff, maybe, because I'm an electronics engineer.
Yes.
But you know, we're still in doubt about the cell phones. The FBI claims that there were no calls, none, from cell phones or any other phone on some of those planes. Well, anyway, I don't know whether they were or whether they're not. So that's how good my testimony is, and it's one of the irrelevancies. We can follow up on that when there's a really good investigation, a criminal investigation that has subpoena power, under penalty for perjury. That type of power is what we need, not this thing where the president and the vice president testify behind closed doors with no reporters available and no transcripts kept and not under oath. Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, something that we are doing at our free library events, at our free events where we're showing the DVD, 9/11 Experts Speak Out, or 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out, is that at the end of the presentation, among the things that we ask for people, or we say to people, is to please consider signing a petition which basically is for a new investigation, because once you are presented the evidence, it's hard for most of us to to just be complacent, and some of us want to do something before we even exit the room. So that's something that we ask. And I'm actually responsible for our website, and I need to put a link. You can go to the national AE911truth.org. That's the national website for architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and you can sign the petition there. They used to only have professionals sign it, but as a Portland chapter, we push them to please open it for
People in
everybody.
general.
Yeah, for people in general, because we're really trying to get a mass of citizens informed and wanting to feel engaged and wanting to sign a petition, which would make a request for a new investigation, and this investigation, among the things that we would want to have included in this investigation, is an actual investigation of the evidence of explosives, which there was a vast amount of evidence, not only physical evidence, but there was videotapings of explosions going on. Over 100 first responders who said that they heard explosions, and actually the city had to be sued. The city of New York had to be sued in order to get that.
Yeah, Freedom of Information Act.
Yes.
To get those.
Yeah, to get the first responder
Tape testimony.
tape testimony, yes, to be available for review. So.
And they just somebody put a compilation of 2.5 hours. You can get it on YouTube. 2.5 hours of that testimony without any other commentary, so you can just see for yourself. Oh, by the way, I'm on. We don't have a link to the TV for this computer right in front of me, but I'm on Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth website.
Yes.
And there's a story there. It says CBS Sunday Morning features Ed Asner questioning 9/11 and showing World Trade Center 7's free fall on national television. Well, it was only that long, just less than 30 seconds where he was actually talking about 9/11, but it really happened. And things are really changing. They're letting that type of thing through now, and they didn't immediately jump on him like he was some sort of kook.
Yeah, and actually, we were able to, the Colorado PBS station aired.
Right, that's this one right here.
Yes, it aired, Colorado Public Television aired the DVD 9/11 Explosive Evidence Experts Speak Out, and it's actually ranked at their number one video that's being viewed right now.
Yeah, of all times in the Colorado public broadcast system, it's the most downloaded and most viewed. So it's really record-breaking. People are beginning to wake up. They want that type of information. They're beginning to see the things that we've been talking about come true. The results of 9/11 have been so oppressive, and now they're out in the open. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, at least, not too much. They're bragging about a lot of what they're doing.
Yeah, ideally, we're trying to. I'm going to try and advocate to have it put on PBS locally. And it was a part of Colorado's when they're trying to pull money in, they have a
they're fund driving. Yeah,
yes, it was part of their fund drive. And Richard Gage actually spoke. Richard Gage is the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. He's been going at this for over 3 years now in a dedicated way. And Richard Gage was actually here in Portland. We had him here in the month of March and also in the month of May, and we hope to have him here again this coming year. So, please go to our website and.
Here's what it says about that: a daring new documentary that uses scientific analysis to challenge the official 9/11 story became the most popular film on PBS during the week of 9/11 anniversary, which followed its record-breaking broadcast on Colorado Public Television. So there's two different reports, two different PBSs that it became #1 on.
Yeah.
So we're doing really great. Hey, now, you're not calling in. 503-288-4448. We've got enough that 3 people can be on the hook at once. So give us a call and tell us what your take is. And by the way, in the meantime, remember last year they had the 9/11 group meet in Toronto?
Yes,
and they did hours of videoing and then put out a final draft on what should be done. But it was very professional, and they just put out a 5-hour video, the condensed version of 5 days or whatever. How many days?
I need to see that. I really need to see that. I have not seen that. What happened as a result of the Toronto hearing.
I'm going to be breaking it up into smaller parts and putting it on cable access. So watch during the next month or two. Oh, we got a phone call. But during the next month or two, be sure to watch cable access and watch your TV guide. It'll be in TV guide for the directory. And one of the best things in it is the psychological evaluation. There's over an hour of discussion on that. So
Yeah, in actually in the DVD that we've been promoting this year, which actually debuted in May. Yeah, there's about almost 20 minutes of where professionals
right, that was at the end of Experts Speak Out.
Yeah, where they comment on why it's so hard for people to accept the evidence.
Okay, caller, you're on. Hello, caller. We might need a little help with that.
Well,
Can you go ahead and talk, and I'll run in there.
Yeah. And so among the other upcoming things that our Portland chapter of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth is doing this year, I mentioned 4 free library events in the month of October. That's one thing.
Hello?
So again, I'll just review those dates quickly.
Hello?
October 9th, Tuesday, October 9th, we're going to be having a free library event at the Gresham Library.
Hello?
October 23rd at the Belmont Library. October
Hello?
30th at the Selwood Library.
Hello?
Okay, caller, we got it straightened out.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Except I don't hear you in here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You got to
Hello?
put the phone on AUX 2.
Hello, can you hear me?
Make sure that the phone is turned. Press AUX 2 there, and make sure
Hello?
the slider's up on AUX 2.
Hello? Hello, can you hear
Okay,
me?
just a little technical jargon there, but I did
Hello,
hear.
can you hear me?
Yeah, now I hear you just fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes, do you hear us?
Oh, yes, I can hear you great.
Yay!
Thank you very much for the program.
Okay,
And,
it's all new equipment, folks. Bear with us.
oh, that's all right.
Can you turn it
Marcella,
down
I
in
have
here?
a question, a couple of questions. For the Gresham Library event, would you be able to give the time, the start time for that?
Yes, it's from 5 to 7. 5 to 7
5
at
to
the Gresham
7.
Library.
Okay, great. Because I'll probably show up just a little late, but I
Yeah.
hope the doors aren't locked.
Yeah,
And-
and please note to these free library events, we also issue you a free DVD at the very end, which is
Okay.
exactly what you just saw. You know,
Oh,
for
uh-huh.
you to pass around, to make copies of
Oh,
yourself.
yeah, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, my other question is
Yes.
for my biggest, the biggest stick I have on this 9/11 thing is Building 7.
Yes.
And once Building 7 is solved, all the rest of the pieces will fall in place. My question for Building 7 is, the 2 towers were in what they call the bathtub. Was Building 7 also part of that bathtub? Do you know? And if you don't know right now, maybe come on a later program and give that information.
Yeah, I have not heard the term of the bathtub, but it was
What-
literally right next to one of the towers.
Yeah, it was.
If-
It was in the same complex, right next to the 2 towers, and
Yes.
the towers were basically sitting above like 10 stories of parking garage, and they called that area the bathtub.
Okay.
And
bathtub.
so
Oh.
I was just curious if Building 7 was part of that big pit. And I do thank you so much for your efforts, and
actually, he's-
keep plugging along. And
I heard
I'll hang up and listen to the rest of it on
Well-
the.
Well, actually, hold on.
I heard the question, but the bathtub was really the 2 big towers, and
Okay.
underneath the Building 7 was a subway and a power station, I think, something like
Okay.
that. And I'm not sure about those details.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it was part of that big parking garage structure or if it was a little less space underneath it.
I think there's a
you know.
little less space under Building 7,
It
but
was
I'm
across
Yeah.
the street from one of the buildings, so it was not. Yeah, it was not.
yeah, it was a football field away from the
Yeah.
tower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. I thank you so much for the program, Bill, and I'll hang up and let other calls come through.
Right on. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got one more caller just sitting there waiting, and I think we're going to be able to connect up without a problem this time. Oh, they gave up waiting for us.
But among the things though that most people.
So now you just have to drop call.
But among the things, you know, the gentleman that just called in, our first caller, he did comment about Building 7, and most people, especially on this coast, I certainly didn't know about it for years, but most people don't realize that 3 skyscrapers went down on 9/11. It was the 2 towers, which were the infamous, initial towers, which fell down in the morning about an hour after they were initially hit. But then there was an additional skyscraper that came down, which was never hit by a plane, which came down at about 5:20 that evening, and everybody was evacuated out of the building before it was collapsed in.
Yeah, mysteriously they knew that the building was coming down, and yet no steel frame building had ever done that before, so they didn't have any experience with which to rely to make that with which to rely on anyway, they didn't have enough experience to make that judgment call, and yet they were pretty accurate. They got Giuliani to relocate his New York Emergency Center, a few blocks away from that, and he's never explained who it was that told him that the building was going to be coming down.
Yeah. And in fact, even a BBC news reporter was with the building behind her in New York. She was on air and said that
the building was already gone.
Was already down, and she was saying it about 20 minutes before it would be brought down.
But it turns out CNN did it an hour beforehand, and we know what the root of that was. They were all tapped into a Reuters feed, and Reuters was the one that spread all that early information, and we don't know.
Oh, wow.
We don't know where they got it, or if it was accidental or part of the cabal that everybody's worried about. Remember, we don't take sides here. Some things seem to be obvious, and some things are not so obvious, but we want an investigation, and the investigation will find it. It's not our job to explain what actually happened. We don't have the resources or the subpoena power to force anybody to talk to us, and consequently, we want a real investigation, and we'll let the chips fall where they may. In the meantime, we're pointing out what doesn't fit. And go ahead, caller. We got a caller. We had a caller. Okay.
No.
Oh, there, now we got one. Go ahead.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
You're on the air.
Okay, so I was just wondering, did you guys just, I want to know when exactly you came around to this. Was it right after it happened? Because myself, I'm, not a conspiracy theorist. I don't personally believe that it was an inside job. So I'm curious now, what was the compelling evidence that put you so far into the camp?
Let's see what you have to say on that. I have my own, but go for it.
Well, I started my own practice, a couple years before I graduated architecture school, and because I was working from home and I would put the TV on, and between CNN and cable access, I ran into a video by Richard Gage and others who had basically between professional videos that were put together professionally.
Now Richard Gage started about 2006, so that's kind of late in the game.
Yeah, and for me, I think it was so for me it was, so I was in architecture school when it happened, and nobody in architecture school, no professors, nobody questioned it. If anything, one of the professors was trying to enter the design competition. So I didn't get any kind of confirmation, although I know that these steel buildings could not have gone down in 10 seconds, but I didn't have anybody that was helping me until eventually I would go on to see a video, and then I would go on to see Architects and Just for 11 Truth, and I would feel kind of vindicated in my own reasoning. And but that would be a delay of at least 4 to 5 years after it happened.
Now,
which was
there are people
excruciating.
like Alex Jones, not only predicted the 9/11 attack, and that's on YouTube. You can go look at it. But he was the first one to really start making a big deal of it right after 9/11, live and in your face. And I didn't become involved with cable access until a lot later. And I started the show as soon as I did with 2007, and we've been going ever since. So this is the 5th year of the show, doing 2 shows a month. And it's hard to say what really got me started, but what really clinched it happened a lot later. And for one thing, during my college career, I had to take a lot of physics courses, and it wasn't too applicable to the lower level electronics that I was studying. It might be for designing circuits, but anyway, when David Chandler came along and started timing the actual fall of the building, and then showing that that means that the tower upper block is exerting 1/3 of its mass on the lower part, and yet it's completely destroying the lower part. How is that possible? Because the lower part's built not to just hold up the entire mass, not just 1/3 of it, but an overrating factor of between 2 and 5 times the weight. And yet here you have, by mathematical certainty, not somebody's opinion, by measuring the rate of fall, you know for sure that the building is exerting only 1/3 of its mass, and it's still being destroyed. There is some proof that something else is destroying the building underneath it as the top falls through it. And that is a mathematical certainty. That's not up for conjecture. It doesn't fit the official story. Then you look at the microspheres and the other debris, the other evidence in the debris for explosive residue. It's for sure. It's not something you can wave your hand away with a scientific paper written on it that's posted on the Bentham Chemical Physics Journal, or Open Physics Journal, I think. You'll find it. Bentham and 9/11 nanothermite. You'll find it. And those two things together absolutely cinch that it was an inside job, because there's no way some foreigner is going to get into those buildings to place all those explosives. Only somebody who has a pass, somebody who has an in with security, is going to be able to do that. And that's where the inside job comes from. You know, we know that that all the evidence does not fit. All of the evidence does not fit the official story. So there we go.
We have a possible caller.
Okay, well, keep on calling. Now, those two things, the physics, the rate of fall, make it an impossibility.
Yeah, and other things is the two towers, when they were designed in the late 60s, constructed in the early 70s, they were designed, so there was a plane that hit a skyscraper in New York in the 1940s. Because of stuff like that, skyscrapers were made to withstand the impact of a plane. So when these two towers were designed, they were purposely designed. Then the largest plane was a 707. Each of those towers was designed to withstand multiple 707s, fully fueled, hitting it and withstanding the impact. Not that it would get, it was basically a netting. The core of the buildings were a net that would catch anything that would basically run into it. And so those buildings were designed to withstand of 707s fully fueled, hitting it multiple times.
The designer was heard to say that he thought that it would withstand 2 airplanes at once.
And even Mr. Child, that's his last name anyway. He's the one who designed the new building. He's even videotaped saying that there is no, because a student I guess ran in crying, saying like, do you think those buildings the towers are gonna fall down? And he's quoted saying no, they weren't going to.
Well, yeah, they weren't. I mean, and here's the bottom line clue: they have not changed any of the specifications and regulations in the building industry to match some sort of, we found a terrible weakness in the building, just throw a little diesel fire on it and down it comes. So now we have to rebuild with a certain more amount of steel, more connections. They didn't do that. They left it exactly as it was because it was sufficient, as long as you don't blow it up.
Yeah, as long as you don't blow it up. Yeah.
Oh, man. What would be great on the show, I have a kind of a list of all the people that have made comments to me, and it gives me a trail back to my comments to them. And you see the blog wars that I go through with some of the people that call up and say, well, those microspheres, that's probably from all the welding they did when they were building it. That's been cleaned up for a long time, and they didn't store tons of microspheres in the building in the walls somewhere that got released. I mean, people will grasp at straws, so they desperately don't want to admit their worldview is wrong. That's what it boils down to. Some people will, at all costs, doesn't matter whether you hit them with facts that they can't deny or not, they'll ignore them. They don't have to deny them. They ignore the facts. Well, we got another caller.
Hello, Bill.
Hello.
Yes, Bill.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Tell your viewers tomorrow night.
You're telling them now. Go ahead.
7 at 9 p.m. and watch how they fix up the remote control planes to crash in the desert there on Discovery.
Oh, Discovery Channel, Channel 7.
Channel 7 tomorrow night.
And they're going to talk about the 9/11 planes being remote controlled?
Yeah.
The Discovery Channel is famous for being 9/11 disinfo. I mean, they did everything they could to prove that the official story was correct. And, they bent over backwards. They ignored physics to do it. And now they're going to come out and say, but the airplanes were remote controlled.
Well, anyway, that picks up a 727, remote controlled. Pilots bail out, and then the plane crashes.
They wouldn't even need a pilot at all. They could take off and land and take off and crash without a pilot.
Right. Anyway, Channel 7 tomorrow night.
At 9 o'clock.
9 p.m.
I'm gonna watch that.
I'm going to watch that.
I'm gonna watch that.
I might be cussing, but I'll watch it.
Called Plane Crash.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks. That was a great heads up on that. And,
that's a great heads up.
And be sure to watch. I've got over 5 or 6 hours of video coming from that Toronto hearing that they've just re-edited for
fantastic.
2012.
That's fantastic.
So do we have another call?
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're
Thank
there
you, sir.
still.
Thank you.
Sorry, we didn't mean to just...
Sorry about that.
Have a good one. Okay, no more calls. Oh, we do have one?
I'm
okay.
here.
Yeah, go for it. Hello.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. And what have you got to say?
Great show, and I know you guys are dealing with new equipment, and I understand how tough that is because I work with it too.
Yeah,
So-
about 8 new computers at once.
Sure, I just wanted to say first off, great show, haven't watched it in a while, and something I'd like to bring up that hasn't been brought up for people who doubt the government would be behind blowing up its own buildings and enslaving its own people. Let's go back to 1993 and the first World Trade Center bombing.
Oh, good idea. Go for
The
it.
facts are all there on the table. The government did give real explosives. A guy by the name of John Antisev, head of the FBI office, caught on tape by a man by the name of Imad Salem, spelled
Right, he was
S-A-L-E-M,
supposed to be the
who
patsy.
recorded the FBI handler who gave him live explosives and told him to go ahead with the bombing of the building. Now, he realized he was being set up. For those that don't know, if I'm talking ahead of everybody here, you should know the history of this. Look this up. You'll see what I'm talking
It's
about.
really
Bill, are
true.
you aware of, I'm sure you're aware of this.
It was really awesome because, you know, I'm listening to the tape and I hear this Arab guy say, but live explosives, are you sure you really want to do that? You know, and the guy says, yes. You know, God, I couldn't believe it.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Oh,
So
man,
thank you.
it's awesome. 1993 was the terrorist plot that killed some people and started all this going, but didn't bring down the towers, supposedly because they didn't place the bomb right, was an FBI sting plot, just like all these other terrorists, like the FBI putting the terrorists on the airplane and then trying to pretend it was a Arab plot.
Or the FBI here in Portland Square.
Oh, right, the
Portland
Christmas
Square.
Christmas tree
Yeah, and how
bomber,
they set
another
the guy
FBI
up.
sting. It turns out that 93 was an FBI plot. How are they going to show us that in the middle of all these FBI state crimes against democracy, there's this one state crime against democracy called 9/11 that the FBI didn't do, right?
Well, that's right. That's why I think the first one is so important. I mean, you have actual evidence on tape. I believe CBS News even actually covered that.
Right.
And if people will just go look that up, you'll actually hear the agent telling him, go ahead, yeah, they gave him live explosives.
I actually played that on
you
my
said
show.
Sting, you're exactly right. It was a setup. And if this guy, this Salem had not been smart enough to record it, is there zero question in anybody's mind we'd have never got the facts and the FBI would have got away with
Isn't that
their own
amazing?
government
It's
trying
right
to
in
blow
your
up a building
face.
and kill its own people? I mean, come on, let's wake up. You're doing a great job. Keep up the work. 9/11 was an inside job, and we're going to put these criminals in prison shortly when this thing is over, and we're going to take this country back. God bless.
Let's go
What was
for
the
it. Right
FBI's
on.
What was the FBI's agent name again? John Henderson?
Oh, he's already gone, but you can find that really
Okay,
easy on
okay.
the net. Okay, we got 2 more callers, so we're going to take the next one. Just go bang, bang right off the bat. Go ahead. Hello, caller.
I think so. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
You're pretty quiet.
Sorry about
Whoa!
Oh, you lost that one.
He's gone. Okay, we lost that one. We'll take the next one. And
Hello.
hello.
Hey, the one part of the story that you guys are presenting that I have a hard time buying is the fact that you're claiming that the guest is a woman.
That who's a woman?
The guest, it looks like a man.
It's one of these crank callers. You can't be serious about the subject. He has to call up and try to assassinate character. Like I've said on the blogs many times, your foul language and character assassination will not support your opinion, sir.
That's very well put. Good job.
Anyway, so yeah, you get people that's
By the way,
the highest.
I cut my own hair three Saturdays ago. Cut my
Okay.
own hair in March. Cut my own. I've been
I don't
cutting
have
my
enough hair to cut. Anyway, yeah, I do need to trim on the sides. Okay, do we have any other callers? I like to get crank calls sometimes because it gives us a good segue, but I like crank calls that call up to say, no, here's what really happened on 9/11, and then they tell us something that's all nonsense. Go ahead. Just just keep sending them on through, and when I hear the voice in the sky, I'll know they're there.
Well,
Our telephone speaker's up in the air. That's why I say voice in the sky.
so I can mention we're gonna have okay.
Go for it.
Okay.
Hello, caller.
Oh, hello. Anyway, it was something that I noticed. It was back during basically 9/11,
Uh-huh.
and there was used to be a show on, obviously on Discovery. I sort of forgot about it, but that's what got me thinking about the way those buildings collapsed, because they used to have a demolition company doing demolition on until just a little bit after 9/11. And then they stopped doing it.
Oh,
You remember that?
CDI? I'm not sure.
Well-
You mean at the 9/11 site?
A demolition company picked up the mess, which I feel like they're picking up their own mess.
I always thought that was interesting that the one of the major suspects for the crime might,
Oh, thank you.
would be actually cleaning up their own mess. Oh, okay, right on. We got a name of that FBI New York office chief who took the call and ordered the 1993 bombing on the World Trade Center to take place. That was a United States false flag operation that got busted by people in the United States. They got caught red-handed doing it, and somebody with enough power to prevent prosecution stopped the prosecution, but they didn't stop the information, which is in a court transcript. It's record, absolute legal record. And they tried to put this Arab guy in jail for 1 million years. And he brought out the tapes. They're in the court record, and he won his case. And that's, oops, there's the FBI caught red-handed cheating us.
Yeah.
And then people say, oh, but I don't believe they did 9/11. But they did 1993. Okay.
So the piece of paper that I just got handed was was telling me that it was John, the FBI, the New York office FBI agent. His name was John Anticev. Antic.
It might be Antichev. I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
Okay.
But anyway,
That's what I was handed.
and you can go to YouTube. Those are still on YouTube. You can watch them yourself. It's amazing. Caller?
Oh, hi. Anyway, I'm not sure you actually heard what I said. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear
You
you.
can hear you now.
We probably
Okay,
went
well,
off on a
anyway,
tangent.
There's another problem you have. It seems to be on channel 11. I don't know if you notice. I tend to try and watch it fairly regularly,
Okay.
but there's no sound half.
Oh,
It says it's not 21 or 23.
you know what?
It's
We did
11.
a show. We did a show 2 shows ago. It was September 18th, I think it was, and we didn't have outgoing audio on the first third of the show, and it was because we messed up on our own control in there. We got it straightened out, and now we don't have that mistake anymore.
Yeah.
But we made it. We recorded it with sound because that came from a different point in the system. But the part that went to Master Control and then to Comcast didn't have sound on it. I apologize for that. And that wasn't Channel 11's fault. It wasn't PCM's fault. It was my fault.
Yeah, just kidding.
All
Sorry.
right, well,
Just
it's
kidding.
not just you.
You've seen
I mean,
it
it's
before
other-
too, huh?
Other shows that this happens to.
Well,
Yeah,
remember,
just
it's all
Channel
new.
11.
It's all new equipment right now. We just changed over to state-of-the-art high definition.
In September.
If if you
Yeah,
had
it
a
could
crew,
be.
if you had a crew of
Anyway,
about
'cause
4.
if you're on 21 or 23, I can hear you.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you're on 11, I can't. So, anyway, just thought I'd warn you in case you didn't know.
Right on. Well, I'll
Thank you.
pass that on to our tech staff and see if they can spot any problems.
All right.
But like I said,
Okay,
that
well,
one.
Anyway, thank you for, your show.
Oh
I'll
yeah,
talk to
you
later.
bet. Thanks for calling. We got another caller? Yeah, he's fun. Yep, we do. Okay, go ahead, caller. See, this is what happens on the show once we open up the phones. We just keep boom, boom. Caller, go.
Caller.
Don't be shy.
I am just wondering what makes you guys think that it is a inside job on this. I'm not totally familiar with that. Can you guys explain that?
Well, it's the name of your show, so you
Okay.
you take that one.
Well, basically, it really evolves around the fact that the government story says that there were no explosives involved at all, and yet even government agencies found the same residue of explosives and didn't brag about it, but it's there and didn't get included. They were submitted to the 9/11 Commission, but didn't get included mysteriously. But so along comes Stephen Jones, Neil Harrod et al., and they do some research and find that there was definitely an explosive residue, but not just any explosive, a high-tech military explosive that only the military here in the United States was making. And that residue shows that at least that explosive was used in the demolition. Now, the fact that there were explosives, there's no way any Arab terrorists could have gotten inside the buildings to plant the explosives. They were not on the airplane because the explosives were placed carefully on each floor that was detonated. And that fact right there precludes any outside agency. It had to be done with the full approval of whoever's issuing security passes for the building, because that type of demolition requires months and months, at least weeks of work to set up. And they didn't just do Building 7 overnight either. The fact that they brought down Building 7 shows that it was planned ahead of time too, because you cannot plan it in the morning and do it in the afternoon. It just isn't possible. And that's their official story, and even that got changed. But the fact that the explosive residue was there means it had to be an inside job. That's the reasoning. But you don't have to jump to that conclusion yet. Wait until there's an investigation. The fact that there's explosive residue should be investigated and come up with an answer, you know, officially.
So, I mean, so Bill's show is called, 9/11 was an inside job, and I'm with Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. I co-founded the Portland chapter last year with an engineer, and through Portland Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, we try and show the public, we try and educate the public through the scientific method to show you that demolition was used to bring down all 3 towers. And so that's what we're doing. So we're not suggesting it was an inside job. We are trying to educate you that in fact explosives were used to bring down the buildings in less than 10 seconds. That's about as fast as dropping your keys from the top of the towers and them hitting the ground with absolutely no resistance from anything.
Yeah,
that's fast.
And since the explosives were discovered, there's been all kinds of backup evidence, but the main thing was what we just described earlier about, David Chandler. You can look up his videos on the web, but David Chandler's a physics teacher, a high school physics teacher, who simply measured the rate of fall of the building and did the math and found out that the force being exerted on the lower part of the building could not have possibly hurt the building, let alone destroy it. And so that is another proof that some other energy source, not accounted for in the official story, was present. And that's another scientific fact that can't be argued. And so our organization, Architects and Engineers, is presenting facts to you, not conjecture, not this is a possibility. We are basing our entire explanation on facts. Yeah,
so.
I'm the one who went a little bit further by making the conclusions, but yeah. So go ahead.
So with that said, with the facts that you're trying to explain or that you have explained, were those chemicals or those explosives, not chemicals, were they in the planes or were they actually planted in the buildings?
So they were in the buildings, and we, I'm saying, like, I mean, if on a personal note, where are the planes? There are no plane parts. So so planes, no planes, whatever.
Well, that isn't even part of the architect's position, because there have been some plane parts found, but one of the controversies on planes is that somebody just announced that they found the serial number of 2 of the planes that were supposed to be destroyed being sold in Europe. So there's a lot to be investigated, and
among presentations which I've attended in the last few years is a presentation by William Rodriguez, who was a security guard in one of the towers for like 20 years. He goes around the world now telling his story, and in his story he says that there were explosions in the subterranean basement, like 7 seconds before the first plane even hit.
Yeah, before the first plane hit. Now that was eyewitness testimony.
And people died in those explosions. People had limbs blown off in those explosions. So the timing of these explosions was timed to the T. I mean, there was weakening of the buildings at the subterranean level, and then there was and then there was explosions throughout the buildings, which would eventually bring them down. There was a fire chief on the second building that was hit, which the South Tower was the second building. Anyway, the second building that was hit, there was a chief that got online, and he said, and he tells everybody on the intercom, that we need like 2 lines up here, and basically explains it, saying
that was the second building hit, and it had only been burning for 45 minutes. The guy had radioed in, there's only 2 little fires. We could put it down with 2 hoses, and just then the building collapsed, and
and so the second
I have speculation on why, but
and so the second building that was hit, who was being called in by a fire chief, saying that this is totally manageable, and that was the first building that came down. I feel like he was silenced. I feel like they had to get ahead of more people knowing.
You couldn't let the firemen establish control over the fire, because then there'd be no excuse for the buildings to drop.
Come down. Yeah, and firemen enter those buildings because they know that a steel frame building that's fireproofed cannot come down because of fire.
Right, they charge in. They don't think that it's going to. They aren't even considering the idea of it falling.
Yeah, they're charging, knowing that they can take it out, and then they can come back out the building safely.
What were you going to say? Did you have another comment?
Oh, no, that was it. I appreciate all of your information. My kids are in the background.
Okay, hey, well,
thank you so much for the questions.
When you get on YouTube, check out David Chandler and watch some of his videos. It'll blow your mind. Some of those things are just right in your face, and it'll be so obvious when you see it. Okay, well, thank you, caller.
Also, I
thank you guys for helping me understand what you guys were talking about.
Well, I hope it did. It might just be a bunch of gibberish, but you can, look it up on the internet and start using that as a basis for expanding.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And we got another caller waiting, so we got to go.
Thank you, Mom.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And hello, caller. Oh, that one hung up waiting. Sorry we didn't get to you in time, but you can call back again. We've still got 6 minutes left, and we're on a roll.
Yeah. Sorry if I can sometimes ramble a little bit.
Well, I'm the chief rambler.
Well, in the meantime, let me just say that with Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, in December, we're gonna have a 2-day solution-based workshop, and we're doing it in collaboration with a nonprofit. So go to our website.
Okay, we got a caller
for upcoming events.
Oh, that caller didn't wait either. But we'll try to have my computer hooked up next week, because one of the things we can do is I can pretty much go right to what I need to find to answer your question. I could actually show you some well-made little video clip that kind of supports our opinion. Do we have another caller? Okay, we'll try it again. Hello, caller.
Yep, I was just curious.
We're there.
There's no denying that there were planes that crashed into the buildings. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, there are some people that do, but man, I think that's a distraction to try to discredit the whole group. They say there were holograms, projected by the military or something like that, and then another group says, well, they were destroyed by a space platform with an energy ray, and another group says that there were nuclear explosions. We do not subscribe to any of that because there's no supporting evidence whatsoever.
But what there is supporting evidence for is explosions in the buildings
on every level, all the way up and down.
So what happened to the airplanes?
Well, they could be destroyed in that plane.
What happened to the airplane that hit the Pentagon? What happened to the airplane in Philadelphia? We don't know these. I mean, you're having us go down a rabbit hole that we can't follow you through.
Yeah, we can't answer that question, but we know that it doesn't match the official story.
Can you tell me the weight of those airplanes? Can you tell me what the weight of those airplanes was?
Not exactly, but they're real comparable.
Would the physical weight of the airplane have anything to do with the building collapsing?
Well, no, because remember, the building didn't collapse until, almost an hour after the plane hit. If the plane had anything to do with it, it would have been immediate.
So there was no possibility of metal or concrete fatiguing or anything like that.
The buildings
I'd
were
say
designed. The buildings were designed to withstand in the late '60s, early '70s, a fully fueled 707. That was the largest plane then.
These weren't 707s, were they?
No, but they were comparable.
They were 757s.
They were larger, were they not?
I think the 707 was larger, actually. It depends. It depends on what plane you're talking about. But the main thing is that
I'm just curious about the weight of a. If the planes did, in fact, and I believe they did go into the buildings, that would be quite a bit of weight right?
Well, yeah, but the point is, it's still way within the design strength of the building. The building was designed with a factor of 2 to 5 times what the weight of the building was, and the weight of the plane is insignificant compared to the building. Anyway, thanks for calling. We got one more call and only 2 more minutes, so we got to go.
You know what? You're an asshole.
Thank you for calling. If that was supposed to be a heckling call, it wasn't very very good
but
at
the weight
it.
of the plane, I mean, you can look it up on the internet. You know,
Go ahead, caller.
757. Hello?
Yes, we got 2 minutes, so go ahead.
Yes, my name is Andrea.
Hi, Andrea. Go ahead.
I'm calling from West Lynn, Oregon.
Thank you.
And what do you have to say? You have a question or a comment?
Yes, I've been watching your show now for about half an hour.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's just wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
You know, even bringing up what I've wondered about for some time. And I just wanted to say, if you need any additional funding, I would love to be of assistance.
Well,
keep up the good work.
Right.
I love what you're doing.
Thanks a lot. On that subject, you know, I can't ask for any funding at all. I mean, it's against the rules here at Portland Community Media. I can't even tell you that Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth is a 501c3, and that if you made a contribution to them, you'd get a tax break. I can't tell you that.
So,
okay, we got one more caller.
Consider yourself told.
Okay, go ahead, caller.
So you guys are saying that 9/11 was an inside job?
You got that's the name of our show, and that's my opinion. And you got 1 minute. Hello, caller. Oh, I guess he was just confirming that was the name of the show. What up there wasn't good enough.
So don't forget to possibly go to portlandae911truth.org. That's the Portland chapter of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. I hope they can put the website up while there's possibly still time. But again, that's
there's not enough time.
Okay, www.portlandae911truth.org for any upcoming events. We're gonna have free library events in October at a library near you.
And also you can replay this show on YouTube. It's going to be shown a couple more times this week, but you can go to YouTube and type in 251 Omega. That's my handle on YouTube. Also look for comments on other blogs by 251 Omega, and you'll see me. Anyway, 251 Omega on YouTube, and you can watch all of the shows for the last 5 years.
Yes.
So yeah, we're going to continue. The next show is 2 weeks from today, which would make that the 20th. Right? 14 plus 6 is 20. Okay, the 20th. We're really good at dates here. Have a good one.
Thank you very much for watching. And remember, portlandae911truth.org.